The blue scarf had belonged to her mother. Mara Ellis clutched it tightly as she descended into the station's reactor core, the soft fabric a stark contrast to the utilitarian metal of her toolkit. Arcturus 7's artificial gravity always felt heavier in the lower levels, as if the weight of the entire mining station pressed down on her shoulders. Lieutenant Ellis to command, beginning scheduled maintenance on Sector 4 coolant systems, she reported into her comm unit. The response came back garbled, typical of the shoddy Empyrean technology they were forced to use. The alien hegemony that controlled this quadrant of space provided humans with the bare minimum required to keep the mining operations profitable. Second-class citizens in their own station, relegated to maintenance crew. "Copy that, Lieutenant," came the eventual reply. "You have 2 hours before shift change." Mara sighed, adjusting her tool belt. "Wouldn't need 2 hours if they'd just approve my requisition for proper parts," she muttered to herself after switching off her comm. The reactor core hummed with ominous energy, bathing the chamber in an eerie blue glow that reminded her of Earth's oceans, a sight she hadn't seen since childhood. Mara had spent 5 years as a combat medic before transferring to engineering. The Empyrean hegemony had decided humans were better suited for mechanical work than medicine. Despite her exemplary service record, bureaucratic nonsense, but she'd learned to work within the system. She wrapped her mother's scarf more securely around her neck before opening the access panel. The familiar ritual brought a measure of comfort in the sterile environment. 24 years after her mother's death during the first wave of colonial settlement, the soft fabric still carried the faint scent of home. "All right, you overheated monster," she addressed the reactor coolant system. "Let's see what's clogging you up this time." As she worked, Mara's mind wandered to the latest station gossip. Rumors of increased Zorath activity had everyone on edge. The predatory species was technically part of the Empyrean hegemony, but they operated with near autonomy in the frontier sectors. Humans were particularly wary of them. Their exoskeletal appearance and carnivorous diet had earned them the nickname predators among station personnel. 2 hours into what should have been a routine maintenance job, Mara's scanner picked up an anomalous heat signature behind the secondary coolant tanks. She frowned, adjusting the settings to filter out the ambient reactor temperature. "That can't be right," she muttered, tapping the device against her palm. The signature remained, pulsing with life-form regularity. Following protocol would mean calling security immediately. Instead, Mara found herself drawn toward the source, tool belt jingling softly as she crept between massive coolant pipes. The maintenance tunnels narrowed, forcing her to duck beneath low-hanging conduits. The heat signature grew stronger, accompanied now by a sound, a wet, labored breathing that didn't sound human. Mara hesitated, her hand hovering over her comm unit. Then she heard it, a groan of unmistakable pain. Rounding the final bend in the maze of machinery, Mara froze. Sprawled across the metal grating lay a Zorath warrior, over 7 feet of chitinous exoskeleton and corded muscle. One of its 4 upper limbs clutched at a gaping wound in its torso, iridescent blue blood pooling beneath its massive form. Mara's first instinct was to retreat. Zorath were known to kill humans on sight, considering them beneath notice except as occasional prey. This one, however, appeared incapable of aggression in its current state. As if sensing her presence, the Zorath's head turned, compound eyes focusing on her with startling clarity. Its mandibles clicked rapidly, their version of speech, before it switched to heavily accented standard. "Finish me, human," the words emerged as a rasp, "or leave me to die with dignity." Before Mara could respond, her comm unit crackled to life. "Security sweep of Sector 4 commencing in 5 minutes. All personnel report status." She should call them, By all protocols and common sense, she should alert security to the presence of an unauthorized and highly dangerous alien in a critical infrastructure zone. Instead, Mara found herself kneeling beside the wounded Zorath, her medic's instincts overriding her fear. "What happened to you?" she asked, already assessing the damage. The wound looked like a plasma burn, cutting through the natural armor of the exoskeleton to expose vulnerable tissue beneath. The Zorath's breathing came in ragged bursts. "Betrayal," it managed. "My own clan." Mara heard the distant clank of security boots on metal grating, making a split-second decision that would alter the course of her life. She unwound the blue scarf from her neck. "This is going to hurt," she warned, pressing the fabric against the wound to stem the bleeding. The Zorath's entire body tensed, a guttural sound escaping its throat, but it made no move to stop her. Mara worked quickly, using the scarf as a makeshift pressure bandage. The blue fabric darkened with alien blood. "Security's coming," she whispered urgently. "Can you move?" The Zorath struggled to rise, then collapsed back against the grating. "Leave me," it growled. "Save yourself from association." Mara glanced toward the approaching footsteps, then back at the wounded alien. Everything she knew about station politics, species relations, and personal safety told her to walk away. "My name is Mara," she said instead, securing the scarf more tightly around the wound, "and I'm getting you out of here." The security team passed by the main corridor, their flashlights sweeping dangerously close to the alcove where Mara crouched beside the injured Zorath. She held her breath, one hand pressed firmly over the alien's wound, the other hovering near her comm unit in case she needed to create a distraction. "Sector 4, East Corridor clear," announced one of the officers, his voice echoing metallically through the reactor chamber. "Roger that. Proceeding to Sector 5, replied another. As the footsteps receded, Mara exhaled slowly. "That was close," she murmured, turning her attention back to her unlikely patient. "What should I call you?" The Zorath's breathing had steadied somewhat, though blue blood still seeped through the makeshift bandage. "I am Amok," he replied, compound eyes glittering in the dim emergency lighting. "Clan exile of the Star-Veined." "Well, Amok," Mara said, trying to inject confidence into her voice, "we need to move you somewhere safer. This place will be crawling with maintenance crews when the next shift starts." Amok's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound Mara would later learn indicated skepticism. "Why help me, human? Your kind fears mine, with reason." Mara busied herself checking the security of the bandage, avoiding those unsettling compound eyes. "I was a medic before I was a mechanic," she said simply, "hard habit to break." The truth was more complicated. Something about finding this fierce predator vulnerable had awakened both her compassion and curiosity. The Zorath were the boogeyman of human space, dangerous, inscrutable aliens who viewed humans as weak prey. Yet here was one, wounded and alone, speaking to her as an equal. "Can you walk if I support you?" she asked. Amok made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I outweigh you by at least double, small human." "I'm stronger than I look," Mara countered, already mapping their escape route in her mind. "And I know the maintenance tunnels better than anyone on this station." With considerable effort and muffled sounds of pain that made Mara wince in sympathy, they managed to get Amok upright, his massive arm draped across her shoulders, chitinous plates cool against her skin. The blue scarf remained wrapped around his torso, now almost completely stained with his blood. "Where are you taking me?" Amok asked as they shuffled slowly through the narrow maintenance corridor. "There's an abandoned atmospheric processing unit in Sector 7, Mara replied, grunting with exertion. Empyrean bureaucracy at its finest. They installed a new system but never removed the old one. Nobody goes there except me when I need some peace and quiet. They made their way through the bowels of the station, Mara occasionally stopping to check her datapad for security patrols. Once, they had to hide in a supply closet as an Empyrean officer passed by. Amok's massive form pressed uncomfortably against industrial cleaning supplies, while Mara held her breath. After what seemed like hours, they reached the forgotten atmospheric processor, a cavernous room filled with obsolete machinery. Mara helped Amok settle against a wall, then collapsed beside him, muscles screaming from supporting his weight. "Not bad for a small human," Amok observed, his voice noticeably weaker. Mara managed a tired smile. Just getting started. She pulled out her datapad and began searching through old medical files she'd kept, despite the Empyrean directive to delete them. "I need to know more about Zorath physiology if I'm going to help you properly." "Your scarf," Amok said suddenly. "It was important to you." Mara glanced at the blood-soaked fabric wrapped around his torso. "It was my mother's," she admitted, "but she would have approved of how it's being used." "You will have it returned," Amok promised solemnly. "Let's focus on keeping you alive first." Mara stood, wincing at her sore muscles. "I need to get medical supplies. Will you be okay here for a little while?" Amok's compound eyes fixed on her face. "You are taking great risk, Mara human." "Just Mara is fine," she replied with a small smile. "And yes, I am. Try not to die while I'm gone. It would make all this very awkward to explain." Sneaking through the station to the medical bay proved easier than Mara had anticipated. Her lieutenant's credentials gave her access to most areas, and the night shift was notoriously understaffed. She managed to gather basic supplies, antiseptic, synthetic skin grafts, painkillers, without raising suspicion. Dr. Lin Zhao, however, was more observant than most. "Little late for restocking your personal med kit, isn't it, Lieutenant Ellis?" The physician's voice made Mara jump, nearly dropping the supplies she'd been carefully arranging in her backpack. "Just being prepared," Mara replied, trying to sound casual. "Reactor maintenance gets more dangerous every day with these outdated systems." Dr. Zhao raised an eyebrow, glancing pointedly at the vial of broad-spectrum antibiotics Mara had just pocketed. "Those aren't standard for human first aid kits." "You never know what you might encounter in the lower levels," Mara countered, zipping her backpack closed with finality. "Better safe than sorry." Dr. Zhao stepped closer, lowering her voice. "There are rumors of unauthorized aliens aboard the station. Ellis, if you've come into contact with something concerning, I should know about it." Mara met the doctor's gaze steadily. "Just taking precautions. Doctor, nothing to report." After a moment of tense silence, Dr. Zhao nodded slowly. "Be careful, Lieutenant. The Empyrean security forces have been on high alert. Sergeant Korvax has been particularly zealous lately." Mara suppressed a grimace at the mention of the infamous Empyrean officer. Korvax was known for his strict enforcement of species segregation policies and his particular disdain for humans. "I'll keep my head down," Mara promised. "Thanks for the warning." By the time she returned to the abandoned atmospheric processor, Amok had arranged himself in what appeared to be a meditative posture, his back straight despite the obvious pain it must have caused. "You returned," he observed as she entered, a note of surprise in his alien voice. "I said I would," Mara replied, unpacking her stolen supplies. "How's the pain?" "Manageable," Amok stated, though the rigid set of his body suggested otherwise. Mara approached cautiously, medical scanner in hand. "I need to take a closer look at that wound. The scanner will help me understand what we're dealing with." Amok hesitated, then inclined his head in permission. Mara knelt beside him, carefully unwrapping the blood-soaked scarf. The wound beneath looked angry and inflamed, but the bleeding had slowed. "This was made by a Zorath weapon," Amok explained as she examined him, designed to penetrate our natural armor. Why would your own clan want to kill you? Mara asked, cleaning the wound with antiseptic. Amok's mandibles clicked rapidly, an expression of agitation. I discovered corruption. The clan leader, Vractus, has been secretly trading with the Scaron Collective, enemies of the hegemony. So you're a whistleblower, Mara summarized, applying a synthetic skin graft that immediately began adapting to Amok's unusual biology. I am a warrior who honored his oath to the hegemony, Amok corrected stiffly. For this, I was declared clan exile and marked for death. Mara administered a painkiller through a hypo spray, watching as some of the tension left Amok's massive frame. The Empyrean hegemony doesn't exactly treat humans well, she observed. Why remain loyal to them? Honor is not conditional on fair treatment, Amok replied. This is a concept many species fail to grasp. Mara raised an eyebrow as she packed away her supplies. Is that a dig at humans specifically, or just non-Xor'ath in general? For the first time, Amok made a sound that might have been laughter, a clicking rumble that vibrated through his exoskeleton. Perhaps I am beginning to understand why my kind finds yours so peculiar. You save an enemy, then take offense at his philosophy. Not offended, Mara clarified, settling back against the wall beside him. Just curious. We don't get many chances for cultural exchange around here. They lapsed into silence, the hum of the station's systems creating a soothing background noise. Mara found herself studying Amok's alien features, noticing details she'd never observed in the few Xor'ath she'd glimpsed from afar, the subtle iridescence of his exoskeleton, the expressive movements of his secondary mandibles, the almost human way he seemed to sigh as the painkillers took effect. You should return to your quarters, Amok said eventually. Your absence will be noted. I'm off duty for the next 12 hours, Mara replied, and I've cultivated a reputation for disappearing into the maintenance tunnels during my downtime. No one will look for me. Amok turned those unsettling compound eyes toward her. You would stay with me? Mara shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. Someone needs to monitor your condition. That wound was serious. Among my kind, Amok said slowly, this level of care would indicate clan bond or mating intention. Mara choked on air. It's just basic medical ethics, she spluttered. I don't let patients die, regardless of species. Amok's mandibles clicked in what she was beginning to recognize as amusement. I meant no offense, Mara human. Just Mara, she corrected automatically. Then, curiosity overcoming embarrassment. What's it like being Xor'ath? Thus began the strangest night of Mara's life, swapping stories with a being she'd been taught to fear, learning about Xor'ath culture, explaining human idioms that left Amok utterly bewildered. She told him about Earth, about her mother who had died during the colonial flu outbreak, about her frustration with the Empyrean bureaucracy that had relegated her from medicine to mechanics. In return, Amok spoke of the rigid honor code that governed Xor'ath society, of hunting rituals and clan politics, of his growing disillusionment with his own kind's subservience to the hegemony. We were once apex predators, he lamented, gazing at his wounded torso. Now we are attack dogs for bureaucrats. Mara laughed softly. Sounds like we have more in common than either of our species would like to admit. Perhaps, Amok acknowledged, his voice softening, though few of your kind would have done what you did today. Few of yours would have let me, Mara countered. Their eyes met, human and alien, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of kindred spirits despite their profound differences. The moment was shattered by the sudden blare of alarms. Attention all personnel, announced the station's AI in its emotionless voice. Security alert in progress. Unauthorized Xor'ath presence detected in residential sectors. All humans are advised to remain in secured areas until further notice. Mara scrambled to her feet. "They're looking for you!" Amok rose more slowly, his wound clearly still painful despite the medication. "Not just me," he corrected grimly. "If my clan has sent hunters, they will kill any human who stands in their way and claim self-defense afterward. We need to move you somewhere even more secure," Mara decided, gathering her supplies. "And I need to warn my friends. Your involvement ends here, Mara," Amok stated firmly. "You have done more than honor demanded. I will not have your blood on my conscience." Mara fixed him with a determined glare. "This isn't about honor. This is about keeping people safe, you included. Besides, I'm the one who knows this station's hidden places." She slung her backpack over her shoulder. "So unless you want to stumble into a security patrol, you're stuck with me." Before Amok could argue further, Mara's comm unit crackled to life. "Lieutenant Ellis, report your location immediately." The clipped, precise tones of Sergeant Korvac sent a chill down Mara's spine. She motioned for Amok to remain silent as she responded. "Lieutenant Ellis here. I'm in the residential section. Sector 3. "Negative, Lieutenant," came the immediate reply. "Your biosignature is not registering in Sector 3. Report your actual location or face disciplinary action." Mara cursed under her breath. The Empyrean officer was tracking her through the station's systems, something that was supposed to be impossible for off-duty personnel. "I'm conducting personal maintenance on my quarters' environmental controls," she improvised. "The wall shielding must be interfering with the bioscanners." A pause, then, "Remain where you are, Lieutenant. A security team will verify your statement shortly." The comm went dead, and Mara looked up at Amok with wide eyes. "We need to go. Now." They slipped through the maintenance tunnels, Amok moving with surprising stealth despite his size and injury. Mara led them deeper into the station's infrastructure, toward areas so neglected even the station schematics had forgotten them. "How do you know these paths?" Amok asked, as they descended a ladder into what appeared to be an abandoned hydroponics bay. "I explore when I can't sleep," Mara explained, helping him navigate the overgrown vegetation, which is often combat PTSD and all that. Amok made a sound of understanding, the shadow memories of battle. "My kind suffers this as well, though we are taught to embrace it as the hunter's burden." Mara glanced back at him, surprised by the insight. "We're taught to process it, whatever that means. Mostly, I just try to stay busy." They continued in companionable silence until reaching a small chamber that had once been a monitoring station for the hydroponics system. Mara secured the door behind them, then activated a portable scrambler that would mask their biosignatures from the station's sensors. "This should keep us hidden for a while," she said, setting up a small heating unit. The abandoned sections of the station ran cold. "How's your wound?" Amok settled onto the floor, examining the blue scarf still wrapped around his torso. The synthetic skin graft beneath had fully integrated, accelerating his natural healing. "Improving. Your medical skills are impressive for a mechanic." "Former combat medic," Mara reminded him, checking her datapad for station security updates. "Though I haven't practiced properly in years." She frowned at the screen. "They've got search parties throughout the residential and commercial sectors. Korvac is leading them personally. He fears what my presence represents," Amok observed. "Disorder in his carefully controlled domain." "He's always had it out for humans, especially," Mara added. "Thinks we're inherently chaotic or something." Amok's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Your species adapts quickly. The Empyrean value stability above all else. They find your evolutionary advantage disturbing." "Is that why the Sorath hunt us? Because we adapt?" "My kind hunts worthy prey," Amok corrected. "The strongest, the most cunning. It is respect, not hatred, that drives the hunt." Mara raised her eyebrows. Forgive me if I don't feel flattered when your people try to eat mine. The eating is ceremonial, not nutritional, Amak clarified, as if this made it better. Only the heart is consumed, to honor the prey's courage. Still not helping your case, Mara said dryly, though she found herself smiling despite the macabre topic. Their conversation was interrupted by Mara's datapad chiming softly, a secure message from Lieutenant Vega, her closest friend on the station. Mara, where the hell are you? Korvax is tearing the place apart, looking for human accomplices to some Zorath infiltrator. He's specifically asking about you. Whatever you're mixed up in, be careful. Meet me in our usual spot if you can. Mara bit her lip, conflicted. Vega deserved to know she was safe, but involving him would put him at risk too. A friend? Amak inquired, noticing her expression. Yes, Mara admitted. He's worried. You should go to him, Amak said solemnly. I can remain here. Mara shook her head. Too risky. If Korvax is specifically looking for me, he'll have surveillance on all my known associates. She typed a quick, cryptic response to Vega. Working on a delicate repair job. Will surface when it's stable. Watch your back around K. Setting the datapad aside, she turned her attention back to Amak. We need a plan. You can't hide in the station forever, and I can't keep dodging security. Amak's compound eyes seemed to darken. There is only one path forward. I must confront those who hunt me and reclaim my honor. That's suicide, Mara protested. You're still injured, and they'll have superior numbers. It is the Zorath way, Amak insisted. Better to die in battle than live in hiding. Mara ran a hand through her short hair in frustration. There has to be another option. What about contacting the hegemony directly? If your clan leader is actually trading with enemies of the state, surely they'd want to know. The communication channels are controlled by Empyrean officials on this station, Amak pointed out. Korvax would intercept any such message. They lapsed into silence. The only sound the distant hum of the station's systems and the soft beeping of Mara's medical scanner as she monitored Amak's healing progress. Your scarf, Amak said suddenly, touching the blood-stained fabric with surprising gentleness. You said it was your mother's. Mara nodded, a lump forming in her throat. She gave it to me before she died, said the color reminded her of Earth's oceans. She smiled sadly. I've never actually seen Earth's oceans, but I like to think they're as beautiful as she described. In my culture, Amak said carefully, to give something of personal value to another is to create a bond of obligation. By using this to save my life, you have honored me deeply. It wasn't about honor, Mara insisted. It was just the right thing to do. Perhaps that is why your species fascinates mine, Amak mused. You act on instinct, what we codify in rigid tradition. Their eyes met again, and Mara felt an unexpected warmth spread through her chest. There was something compelling about Amak's alien perspective. His blend of fierce warrior code and thoughtful philosophy. The moment was shattered by a deafening alarm, different from the previous security alert. This one pulsed with urgency, accompanied by flashing red lights that penetrated even their hidden sanctuary. Warning, reactor core breach imminent. All personnel proceed to emergency evacuation points. This is not a drill. Repeat, reactor core breach imminent. Mara's blood ran cold. The reactor? That's impossible. I just serviced it yesterday. It was stable. Amak rose to his full height, his posture alert. Sabotage, he stated with certainty. My clan would rather destroy the station than fail in their hunt. There are over 3,000 people on this station, Mara protested, already gathering her equipment. Your clan would commit mass murder over an honor dispute? Not my clan any longer, Amak reminded her grimly. And yes, they would. The hunt supersedes all other considerations. Mara shouldered her pack, mind racing. I need to get to the reactor control room. If it's sabotage, there might still be time to prevent a catastrophic breach. You cannot go alone, Amok insisted. The saboteurs will be guarding their work. And I can't bring you into the most heavily monitored section of the station, Mara countered. Korvax has probably doubled security there already. Amok's mandibles clicked rapidly, the gesture she now recognized as determination. Then we will both go, but not by the routes your Empyrean masters expect. Before Mara could argue, Amok moved to the far wall of their hideout and began feeling along the seams of the metal paneling. With surprising precision, he located and pressed a hidden mechanism. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage Mara had never noticed, despite her frequent explorations. How did you? She began, astonished. All hegemony installations are built with hidden access routes for Zorath Special Forces, Amok explained, standard protocol unknown to most species. Even humans who build and maintain the stations, Mara noted with a mixture of admiration and irritation. That's actually pretty smart. Come, Amok beckoned, ducking his massive frame into the passage. This will lead us directly to the reactor level, bypassing main security checkpoints. They navigated the hidden corridor in tense silence, the station's alarm continuing its ominous wail around them. Mara's thoughts raced between concern for the station's inhabitants, fear of confronting hostile Zorath warriors, and growing confusion about her feelings toward Amok. In just 24 hours, he had transformed in her mind from terrifying alien predator to what? Ally? Friend? Something more complex that had no easy definition. The passage eventually opened into a maintenance shaft directly adjacent to the reactor control room. Through a grated vent, they could see 3 Zorath warriors systematically destroying control panels while a 4th stood guard. Vractus's elite hunters, Amok whispered, his voice hardening. They have bypassed the fail-safes. The core will go critical within 30 minutes. Can we stop it? Mara asked, mentally cataloging the damage she could see. Not without getting past them first, Amok replied grimly, and they are equipped with armor and weapons. I have neither. Mara glanced at his wounded torso, still wrapped in her mother's scarf. I might have an idea, she said slowly, but you're not going to like it. Humans and their ideas. Amok sighed, but his tone held no real complaint. Proceed. I create a diversion to draw away the guard, Mara explained. You take him out quietly, then we both deal with the others before they can sound an alarm. You cannot hope to match a Zorath warrior in combat, Amok protested. Mara gave him a tight smile. Who said anything about combat? I'm going to use the station against them. She pointed to her datapad. I may be just a mechanic now, but I've got override codes for emergency systems throughout this sector. Understanding dawned in Amok's compound eyes. Clever human, he acknowledged with respect. They synchronized their plan quickly, with Mara showing Amok how to use her stolen medical scanner to monitor the reactor's deteriorating condition. If they couldn't stop the sabotage in time, they would need to trigger an emergency containment protocol, flooding the reactor chamber with suppressant foam that would buy them precious minutes to evacuate the station. Ready? Mara asked, finger hovering over her datapad. Amok placed one massive hand on her shoulder, the gesture startlingly gentle for such a fearsome being. Whatever happens, Mara human, know that you have earned the respect of a Zorath warrior. Few in the galaxy can claim such distinction. Mara swallowed hard, unexpectedly moved. Let's make sure we both live to brag about it, she replied with forced lightness. With that, she triggered a cascade of security alerts in adjacent corridors, sending maintenance drones haywire and activating fire suppression systems. The effect was immediate. Chaos erupted throughout the sector, drawing the attention of the Zorath Guard. As the warrior moved to investigate, Amok slipped from their hiding place with surprising stealth for his size. Mara held her breath, watching as he approached his unsuspecting kinsman from behind. The takedown was swift and silent, a precise strike to a vulnerable point where exoskeleton segments met, rendering the guard unconscious without a sound. Amok motioned for Mara to join him, handing her the guard's plasma pistol. "Stay behind me," he instructed. "Aim for the joint between head and thorax if you must fire." They entered the control room together, Amok moving with the fluid grace of a natural predator despite his injury. The three remaining Zorath were too absorbed in their sabotage to immediately notice the intrusion. "Vractus sends his regards," Amok announced in the clicking language of his kind. The saboteurs whirled, weapons raised. Their compound eyes registered shock at the sight of Amok, the exile they had presumed dead, standing before them with a human ally. "The clan exile lives," hissed the largest of the three. "Dishonored and consorting with prey species." "I see only one dishonor here," Amok replied coldly. "Warriors who would kill innocents to hide their leader's corruption." The standoff lasted only seconds before the room erupted into violence. Amok launched himself at the lead saboteur, their massive forms colliding with bone-jarring force. The other two Zorath turned their weapons toward Mara, who dove behind a control console for cover. Plasma fire scorched the air above her head as she crawled desperately toward the main reactor controls. If she could just reach the emergency override, she might still prevent catastrophic failure. A shadow fell across her path as one of the Zorath warriors vaulted over the console, blocking her route, his weapon aimed squarely at her head, mandibles clicking in anticipation of an easy kill. Mara fired the plasma pistol without hesitation, remembering Amok's instruction. The shot caught the warrior at the junction between head and thorax, sending him staggering backward with a screech of pain. Not a killing blow, but enough to buy her precious seconds. She scrambled to the override console, fingers flying across the interface as she initiated the emergency containment sequence. Warning klaxons blared anew as massive blast doors began to close around the reactor core. "Mara, down!" Amok's voice cut through the chaos. She dropped instinctively as plasma fire sizzled through the space where she had stood. Rolling to her side, she saw Amok locked in brutal combat with the lead saboteur, while the third Zorath advanced on her position. The warrior she had shot was recovering, rage evident in his alien features, trapped between two hostiles with failing containment protocols flashing on the screens around her. Mara made a desperate calculation. She fired again at the approaching Zorath, forcing him to take cover, then turned to the reactor controls. With a silent apology to the station's engineers, she initiated a controlled plasma venting sequence, a dangerous procedure that would flood adjacent corridors with superheated gas but might stabilize the core. "Amok," she shouted over the din of alarms. "Northeast corridor is about to become very unfriendly. We need to move." Even in the midst of combat, Amok understood her warning. He delivered a powerful blow to his opponent, creating space to disengage, then bounded toward Mara with inhuman speed. "The blast doors," he urged, pointing to the closing security barrier that would soon seal off the control room. Together, they sprinted for the narrowing gap, plasma fire from the recovering Zorath warriors peppering the walls around them. Amok pushed Mara through first, then dove through the opening moments before the massive door slammed shut with finality. They collapsed against the corridor wall, breathing heavily as the station shuddered around them. Through the reinforced viewport in the blast door, they could see the Zorath saboteurs frantically trying to override the containment protocols. "Will it hold?" Amok asked, eyeing the reactor status displays lining the corridor. Mara checked her datapad, relief washing over her as the numbers stabilized. "The core is rebalancing. We've prevented a breach, but the system is fragile." She looked up at him, sudden realization dawning. We just trapped ourselves on the wrong side of the station from the evacuation points. Before Amok could respond, the corridor filled with the distinctive sound of Empyrean security forces, the rhythmic clank of armored boots on metal grating, growing louder by the second. Sergeant Korvax, Mara whispered, recognizing the cadence. If he finds us together, then we will face him together, Amok stated with quiet determination. He straightened to his full height, still impressive despite his injury, and stood protectively in front of Mara. The security team rounded the corner, weapons raised. At their head stood Sergeant Korvax, his Empyrean features twisted in a cold smile of triumph. Lieutenant Ellis, he drawled, eyes flickering between her and Amok. Consorting with the enemy during a security crisis. The penalties for such treason are severe. The only enemies on this station are in there, Mara replied defiantly, pointing to the sealed control room where the Zorath saboteurs remained trapped. They sabotaged the reactor. We stopped them. Korvax's expression didn't change. A convenient story. However, my sensors detected unauthorized Zorath life signs in your company for the past 24 hours. His cold gaze shifted to Amok. This one is an exile, a criminal among his own kind, and you, Lieutenant, have harbored him. He saved the station, Mara insisted, stepping forward despite Amok's attempt to keep her behind him. Check the reactor logs if you don't believe me. The word of a human means little, Korvax dismissed, especially one who has violated multiple protocols. He gestured to his security team. Detain them both. The Zorath for execution, the human for judicial review. As the security forces advanced, Amok tensed beside her, preparing for a final stand. Mara's mind raced, searching desperately for a solution that wouldn't end in bloodshed. A sudden commotion from the sealed control room drew everyone's attention. Through the viewport, they could see the trapped Zorath saboteurs frantically trying to break through the blast door, their weapons creating showers of sparks against the reinforced metal. What are they? Korvax began, before the corridor lights flickered ominously. Mara's datapad chimed with multiple urgent alerts. They're overloading the secondary plasma conduits. She realized with horror, if those blow, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone present understood the implications. The trapped saboteurs were attempting to breach the blast doors by creating a localized explosion, one that would likely trigger the reactor instability they had originally planned. Your security clearance, Amok said urgently to Korvax. It can activate the emergency purge system. The Empyrean officer hesitated, clearly torn between his duty to the station and his prejudice against both human and Zorath. There's no time for bureaucratic nonsense, Mara snapped, her patience evaporating as the corridor lights flickered again. Those are Zorath terrorists in there, about to blow us all to atoms. Are you going to do something about it? Or shall I add, allowed the station to be destroyed out of spite to my list of protocol violations? Something in her tone, or perhaps the dire readings now flashing on every console in the corridor, finally penetrated Korvax's rigid mindset. He stepped to the nearest security panel, entering a complex authorization code. Emergency purge initiated, announced the station's AI. Compartment depressurization in 10 seconds. All personnel clear the affected area immediately. Fall back, Korvax ordered his team, then fixed Mara and Amok with a hard stare. This changes nothing regarding your status. As the security forces retreated around the bend, Mara grabbed Amok's arm. We need to move too. That purge will... I know what it will do, Amok interrupted, his compound eyes fixed on the viewport, where his former clan members now realized their fate. It is a warrior's death, more than they deserve, but fitting nonetheless. They barely made it to the safety of the pressure bulkhead Before the purge sequence completed, a dull whoosh echoed through the station as the compromised section was vented to space, taking the Zorath saboteurs with it and preventing the overload that would have destroyed the reactor. In the aftermath, they found themselves in an uneasy standoff with Korvax and his security team. The Empyrean officer's expression was unreadable as he assessed them. "The station records confirm your account of events," he finally admitted, consulting his datapad. "The reactor logs show unauthorized tampering followed by emergency countermeasures initiated from Lieutenant Ellis's access codes." "So we're heroes," Mara suggested with tired sarcasm. "Medals all around?" Korvax's eyes narrowed. "You violated numerous protocols, Lieutenant, and this, Zorath, is still an unauthorized presence on a hegemony installation." "This Zorath has a name," Amok stated with quiet dignity. "Amok, former huntmaster of Clan Starvaned, loyal servant of the hegemony despite being branded exile." An uncomfortable silence fell over the corridor. Mara could almost see the calculations running behind Korvax's eyes, the political implications, the paperwork, the explaining to superiors. "Perhaps," the Empyrean officer said slowly, "there is a solution that serves all interests." He tapped something into his datapad. "The official record will show that a loyal Zorath warrior alerted station security to a terrorist plot by rogue elements of his species. With the assistance of Lieutenant Ellis, this warrior helped neutralize the threat, demonstrating unprecedented cooperation between our species." Mara blinked in surprise. "You're falsifying the report?" "I am interpreting events in a manner beneficial to station security and hegemony interests," Korvax corrected stiffly. "The alternative would raise uncomfortable questions about our vulnerability to infiltration." "And my status?" Amok inquired. Korvax regarded him with something approaching respect. "I will recommend your exile status be reviewed in light of your service to the hegemony. Until then, you will remain under Lieutenant Ellis's supervision as a cultural exchange consultant." The absurdity of the bureaucratic solution was so perfectly Empyrean that Mara couldn't help but laugh, earning startled looks from the security team. "Sorry," she managed, composing herself. "It's been a long day." As the security forces dispersed to handle the aftermath of the crisis, Mara and Amok found themselves alone in the corridor, the station gradually returning to normal operations around them. "Cultural exchange consultant?" Amok repeated, mandibles clicking in what Mara now recognized as amusement. "Better than execution for being in the wrong place at the wrong time," she pointed out, leaning wearily against the wall. "Though I'm not sure what cultural exchange involves between humans and Zorath. We could start with proper medical care for my wound," Amok suggested, gesturing to the blood-stained blue scarf still wrapped around his torso. "Your makeshift bandage has served admirably, but I believe your Dr. Zhao might have more appropriate treatments." Mara smiled up at him, fatigue and relief making her lightheaded. "Are you saying you're ready to meet more humans?" "I have met one who changed my understanding of your species," Amok replied, his alien features softening in a way she would never have thought possible. "I am curious to learn more." 2 weeks later, Mara stood at the viewport in her quarters, watching the stars as the station orbited Arcturus 7. Behind her, Amok sat cross-legged on the floor, his massive frame making her standard-issue furniture look comically small. The aftermath of the reactor incident had brought unexpected changes to the station. Korvax's creative interpretation of events had been accepted by hegemony authorities, leading to a formal review of relations between humans and Zorath in frontier sectors. Amok's exile status had been provisionally lifted pending investigation of his former clan leader, and he had indeed been assigned as a cultural consultant to the human engineering team. Dr. Zhao had been skeptical at first, but her medical curiosity had quickly overcome her initial fear. She now regularly pestered Amak for tissue samples and physiological data, building the first comprehensive medical database on Zorath biology with his willing cooperation. Lieutenant Vega had taken longer to convince, but after Amak had saved his life during a pressure valve malfunction, the two had developed an unlikely friendship based primarily on their shared enjoyment of terrible station jokes. "Your scarf," Amak said, interrupting Mara's reflections. "I have something for you." She turned from the viewport to find him holding a package wrapped in iridescent material that resembled his exoskeleton. "What's this?" she asked, accepting the surprisingly light bundle. "Open it," he encouraged, compound eyes watching her intently. Inside, she found her mother's blue scarf, cleaned, repaired, and intricately embroidered with alien patterns that somehow complemented its original design. The bloodstains had been incorporated into the new pattern, transformed from damage into decoration. "Amak," she breathed, running her fingers over the delicate needlework. "It's beautiful." "Among my kind, to return a gift enhanced is to honor the giver," he explained. "The patterns tell our story, how a human saved a predator, and how that predator became her guardian." Mara looked up, meeting those alien eyes that had become so familiar. "Guardian, huh? I seem to recall saving your life at least twice now." Amak's mandibles clicked in amusement. "The count stands at 3 rescues for you, 2 for me. I must improve my performance." She laughed, wrapping the scarf around her neck. The fabric felt different against her skin, stronger, more alive somehow. Like her relationship with Amak, it had been transformed by their shared experience into something neither of them could have imagined. "There's a communication from the Empyrean Council," she told him, gesturing to her datapad. "They want us both to testify about interspecies cooperation in frontier sectors. Apparently, we're being held up as some kind of model for the future. A human and a Zorath, changing the course of galactic politics." Amak mused. "Your species would call this unlikely." "Impossible," Mara corrected with a smile. "But then humans specialize in doing the impossible." Amak rose to stand beside her at the viewport, his massive form casting a protective shadow. Together they gazed out at the stars, predator and human, guardian and healer, pioneers of a new understanding between ancient enemies. "I believe," Amak said softly, one clawed hand resting gently on her shoulder, "that this is just the beginning of our story." Mara leaned slightly against him, the scarf around her neck binding them together in ways neither of their species had words to describe. "I think you might be right," she replied as the station continued its endless orbit around a world of new possibilities.